I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You read what others had done, and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, so you don't take any responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could. And before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. That's Dr. Ian Malcolm, chaotician, urging restraint, circumspection. His concerns, Michael Crichton's themes, they go back to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, to Dr. Frankenstein, her modern Prometheus, back to the Tower of Babel, back to Icarus's wax wings. Tonight, that's what we're wrestling with. We're wrestling with humanity's hubris. Tonight, nature finds a way. Tonight, hold on to your butts. Tonight, you know the film, Jurassic Park.
There's a lot of groundbreaking films in the history of cinema. I mean, anytime you have an artist of a certain intellect and stature, you're going to have really challenging stories. Whether that challenge be visual or narrative or production-wise. And I think a lot of things came together with Steven Spielberg's adaptation of Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park. I will admit, I saw this movie in 1992 or 93. I can't remember. It was the summer of 92. I know that. I don't
It was either 93 or 94.
I'm sorry, yeah, 93 or 94. That's right. And I, as a lot of film students, cineasts, film lovers, you create a certain prejudice when it comes to the movie directors that you drift towards, the ones that you embrace, and I'm almost embarrassed to admit that at this time in my life, I was very much someone who was dismissive of Steven Spielberg. I mean, it was just a time where and it was before the critically acclaimed Steven Spielberg would emerge. It was before the more serious adult Steven Spielberg. It was the period of everything that he had done had been action, somewhat child-oriented, with a level of positivity that needed to be grounded in a happy ending. And I didn't appreciate him. I appreciated some of the films. I recognized how much fun they were, but also I think I came to his filmmaking with a sense of this is manipulation, and manipulation can't be true art. This is a 19, 20-year-old me thinking. This is the thought process behind that. I'll say readily, I was completely wrong. And sometimes you need perspective. You need years to go by to really understand what somebody does. Now, I still don't view Spielberg in the same regard as the darker filmmakers. He's definitely not a Paul Schrader. He's definitely not a De Palma or a Coppola, and the bar that I always judged everything by, Scorsese. But it's unfair to it really is unfair to judge him in those regards, because what he does is more than simply popcorn family entertainment. There's a whole lot of deeper elements to his filmmaking. He knows how to excite an audience, but he's also burying a certain level of. There are definitely statements being made, politically, human, and social statements that are being made in these films, whether it's the breakdown of the family in E.T. or religion in the Raiders films, the Indiana Jones films, the role of law and protecting a community in Jaws. These are all films that are dismissed because they appear to be simply entertaining. Now, if you look at Jurassic Park, and I watched it again last night, having not seen it in probably almost 30 years. I don't think I watched it after seeing it in the theater. I've seen clips of it again and again and again because you know it's a movie that is referenced so often in retrospectives and that sort of thing. Best of the 90s, documentaries about Spielberg, that kind of thing. I was really surprised at how deep this film went. And I was kind of shocked at how excited I became watching it. I don't have the appreciation for this film that you have, but I also started thinking about why that was. I was older, and I think there's a part of me that wishes I had seen this when I was 12 or 13 years old. It would have made a difference. It would have made a major difference. 12, 13, 14, even 15 years old, as opposed to 19 or 20 when I saw it. So that being my piece on that, I'm really interested in why this particular film resonated with you, and what was the path that you've taken in understanding your appreciation for it.
I mean, this is me, and I say 94. I don't know if I've seen it listed as 93 on certain sites, and I say, bah humbug, it's like a 94. I don't give a fuck. Like, take me back to 93 and I'll tell you it's 94. Just because. And if, I think for that, it's just, if I'm wrong in terms of the chronology, that's okay. Because in terms of the memory, that's how it resonates with me. And it's kind of like, it's already subjective. It's already skewed. Mm-hmm. And so if I go back and I'm like, yeah, that's me in the theater with a fistful of Skittles, watching this film. I think even one time you and I went to, I don't know what we saw, but we went to the Egyptian, and just as a nod to decades before, I went and I bought Skittles.
I remember that. That's a vague memory, but I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not something I do on a regular basis, but and then there was a guy in line humming music from fucking Lawrence of Arabia, and it was just kind of like, okay, I'm in this alternate universe of fucking film nerds, and I know the music. You know what I mean? Like, anyway, so it was just one of those films that came out during that period of time that I kept going back to the theater to watch. And it wasn't, and like, I can understand your I can understand your sense of maybe this idea that maybe you didn't connect with it because you were a little older.
Hmm.
Um,
But not
but
just a
that
little older, that period of time when you think you know everything, where you think, um, where you think that something like this might be beneath you, or it would,
I see.
you know
Okay,
what I mean? Where you
that's different.
now
Yeah,
you can't take yourself. If you like and embrace something like this, then you're suspect in your overall critical, in your own
yeah,
overall worth as a critic.
yeah. Because at this point, you're. It's like a little knowledge is a dangerous thing because now you're kind
Exactly.
of like a sophomore. Now
Yeah.
you're in the sophomoric fucking. I mean, obviously not in terms of high school chronology, but like in terms of the development of your tastes, you're you're too good for Jurassic Park at that point. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? You're just kind of like, no, I now I know Kurosawa. You know what I mean? Like I'm too good for
Exactly.
Jurassic
Exactly.
Park. Um,
This is beneath me.
yeah, you become
That kind of, yeah.
it's the cycle of snobbery that we all
Hmm.
go through. That I'm currently in my latest form of it. This year.
Sure.
And I go through it every year. The Yeah, because it wasn't. If I look, and we should do this at some point, is like, and we were talking about this, go back and do certain years in review to just talk about, and you brought up this point, like, are we doing it from the perspective of like what we remember or just films in general? And I think it's both. Were we alive? Were we not? Blah, blah. 94, the movies that I was going back to watch, it was like, again, this, whether it's 93 or 94. Pulp Fiction, Natural Born Killers, already like that's different from Jurassic Park.
Hmm.
I sensed even then that those films were better films. I thought they were cooler because that was a big, like, that was one of the columns of like, did it check off the cool box? Um, those were cooler than Jurassic Park. But I saw those, I don't know if just as much, but I saw them a lot. Same thing with like, I mean, I remember The Crow. The Crow was like one, and I remember when we talked about this, and you asked me, or you kind of had this idea that The Crow was like more foundational to me than it actually was. The Crow was just kind of like of a period of time, and we can revisit this if and when we do the 1994 episode. So I'm going to hold back a little bit, so everyone stay tuned for that for the next several years. I'm not giving away the game, but the it it wasn't so much that, like, there are certain films, and we talked about that define you, right? This
Yes.
isn't one of those. It's just one of the ones that it was kind of like it it captured enough of my interest and eniugh of my imagination that I would go back to it. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
Wolf came out that year. The Getaway. I remember seeing The Getaway with Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger, James Woods, the remake. I saw that a whole bunch of times. Like, I think I saw it 3 times in one weekend. Why? I don't know. But it was just, and you get in these moods, you get in these
Hmm.
vibes, and Jurassic Park was one of them. And it's one of, like, when you say you hadn't seen it since it was in the theater, I'm just like, that's fucking crazy,
I know.
because um, I I don't have that experience with it. I've seen it so many fucking times that it's in my, like, top 10, maybe top 5. I'm not sure, but for sure top 10, like, the films I've seen the most in my life. Um, and it's one of those films that doesn't get old for me. And I've seen it in a wide variety of contexts. Obviously, I saw it in the theater multiple times. I've rented it on VHS, on DVD. I've streamed it. I've fucking seen it at, like, outdoor things where you're just kind of like, you're there. It's more of a social thing, and because you want to eat from the food trucks or whatever. And done that. I've seen it like with by myself. I've seen it with Leslie and I watched it the other day. We've seen it together before. It's super quotable, super just very much in that category of films that captured my attention. Why was I 14, 13, whatever, saying like, oh, I love the themes that it's discussing. Did I understand the themes? Yeah, I understood because I already knew what theme was, but and I really didn't even like Spielberg then either. I just, for whatever reason, it was just kind of like, we like amusement parks, but we like the aspect of something, getting out of hand. And I was already into Blade Runner. And so it's kind of like, there's an understanding that this is a version of a horror film. And this is one of those things where it's like, these things that you brought back, this Frankenstein monster that you brought back, isn't going to do what you want, isn't going to behave in the way that you expect it to behave. And I don't know if I even discussed this in terms of like films that define me. If I looked at Ian Malcolm as this kind of like figure that I could relate to or that I wanted to relate to or whatever. But if I think about it now, I'm like potentially some dude with glasses wearing black that's smart. That seems like cool. Or it's like, oh, okay, like he's smart and cool. And he's has an interest in unavailable women. Okay, let me jot that down and apply it later.
Yeah.
Could be. You know what I mean? Like,
there could be something that,
he makes weird pauses when he talks. That affected me.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things of like, how do you relate to a film? How do films relate to you? It just is, just happens to be. It could have been something else. Just happens to be. Dazed and Confused, I think from the following year, similar. Is it an amazing film? No. Is Jurassic Park an amazing film? I don't think it's this great fucking masterpiece of like, it isn't Kurosawa, but it's fun and it does talk about things. It's deeper than it seems, and it's got great performances, and we're going to talk about all of that.
But here's the thing with it. It's I don't think you can ignore it because it is Spielberg, and it's two different periods of his career. Jurassic Park is the maturing Steven Spielberg. He had done The Color Purple at that point, but his dream project was to do Schindler's List, which he had to agree with Universal, the studio that would ultimately back that film. He had to agree to do this film in order to get that film done. Which is crazy, seeing as how Steven Spielberg is probably the most profitable filmmaker in the history of movies, bar none. There is nobody that comes even close to the box office success of a Steven Spielberg in the history of movies. No one. And this is a guy that had to do one for them and one for him.
Mm-hmm.
And the one for them, as he described it, was Jaws on land. But this time he had the ability to make the shark look real, or at least closer to real. When we talked about Jaws so many weeks ago, part of the charm and the excitement of that film is two aspects. These three characters on a boat that we come to know and embrace, and the mystery of what the shark is. With Jurassic Park, there is no mystery. You're seeing the Triceratops, you're seeing the raptors, and you're seeing that Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's there, and the Rex. I'm really amazed at how well the Tyrannosaurus Rex holds up. I mean, that shit looks real. It looks incredible. I don't necessarily like the Brontosaurus at the beginning. I don't know if it's a Brontosaurus or a Brachiosaurus. Get into the technical.
When they first see them.
That looks.
Now you can really, you can see the differences.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if even me that I've seen this film, like even more recently, it starts to look more and more so-called like fake because because my eye is already used to now more seamless CGI.
But what's surprising about it, though, is that I think the Tyrannosaurus Rex, because that's a combination of a real life puppet created by the great Stan Winston, integrated with computer technology. So the Tyrannosaurus, your brain has this weird ability to connect the dots. Now, the Brontosaurus, the Brontosaurus, you don't have that. That's all computer. Those herbivore dinosaurs that are running through the field in that stampede, that doesn't look real to me. But the Tyrannosaurus does look real, especially because in that first scene, that's a real thing there. It's I don't know how big that goddamn thing must have been. I don't know what effort and skill was necessary on Stan Winston's part to make that look real. But you're talking about the best. You're talking about the guy that created the Terminator, the Predator, had a hand in John Carpenter's The Thing, who a master of the craft. And for this film...
That's a nice little... Sorry, Adam Sandler pun that you made there.
Oh, is it?
Had a hand in the thing.
He did.
Anyway, sorry.
Anyway, this is a guy that utilized... This is probably this is the beginning of the change in film. And I think that the studios fucked up by not incorporating more of that puppeteering. If they had done that and mixed it in with live action, if they had mixed the puppeteering live action in with computer generated imagery, these films would be more believable. But as you watch something like The Avengers or any of the Marvel movies, for me at least, there's never a moment that I believe what's on screen. My head doesn't wrap around. I can't make that leap because I haven't seen anything that's flesh. I haven't seen anything that's solid, that casts a shadow. This does that. That Tyrannosaurus, I mean, watching it last night, and I didn't stop the film, but I did go back to certain scenes. And I looked at it and I thought, there's no way that could be a real creature. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like what?
Like that, like looking at it, like when the Tyrannosaurus Rex makes its first appearance and it lowers itself into the frame, and you're seeing in the frame, in the window frame of the movie frame, you see that Rex come down. That's real. And then there are shots outside where it's moving around. That's real. But when it's chasing Ian Malcolm and Dr. Lexi and the hunter in the Jeep, couldn't possibly be real. But I believe it. I believe it because it's already established something. It's already fucked with my head. I've already paid that bill, so I'm invested. And I love it. I love it. So I think what Spielberg did was something amazing. And you got to remember that everything They were making this shit up as they went along with this film. None of the technology existed for them to do this. They were really kind of creating. I think Toy Story had already come out, so there was computer generated imagery. There was computer animation, but this is on a whole other level. I mean, 4 years earlier, 5 years earlier, they had done Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which was still, maybe there was the aid of a computer, but you're talking about something that was still hand drawn. This was, my God, this was a leap. This was a technological and artistic leap that when you have somebody of Spielberg's talent, you can see the possibilities. Now, the problem is, so few artists have Spielberg's innovativeness. And the few who might have it are strangled by the studios. So it was like a good and bad. It was the beginning and the end of traditional cinema. Because, especially as you look now, where you see with AI, not even CGI, AI generated imagery. If you've looked at Instagram, and typically all it is, big-titted models. There are moments when I'm looking at some of these pictures and I'm thinking, that looks incredible, but there's something not right about it.
Yeah, like you intuitively sense that something's off, right?
It's too shiny. It's too perfect. There's no nuance to it. But I think they're leaning into that because they don't want it to be. That's the fear of computer-generated imagery in films. The Avengers looks too clean. It looks there's no I don't know. There's no humanity to it. There are moments when you see that Triceratops that's lying sick. You know it's a puppet. In your head, you're like, that's a fucking puppet. Jim Henson made that. Or, Stan Winston, but, Jim Henson. But it's easier to make that leap. The breathing is labored. The movement of the animal. I was watching it last night, and I saw the eyes dilate as she pointed the flashlight into the... Did you see that?
Oh, it constricts.
Yeah,
when you shine light into an eye.
It constricts. I thought that was amazing. I mean, I can see the studio saying, no, shoot it in such a way so that we don't have to see that. But they made an eye that could do it. That was amazing to me. It's details. It's the minutia of getting something right and making it natural of this world. And I gotta admire Spielberg for that. Originally on this little tirade that I'm going on right now, I'd compared this to Jaws. Now, you would agree that Jaws is a masterpiece, correct? We've talked about this.
Yeah.
Jaws is a masterpiece. Why is Jaws a masterpiece and this is not a masterpiece?
Yeah.
Although this is a very important film for you, I recognize it as important in cinema, and I appreciate it a hell of a lot more than I ever thought I was capable of on this second viewing. Why is it not the masterpiece that Jaws is? Do you have an answer to that? Do you have an idea of why it is not for you?
I mean, I think trying to answer that, I think it's just me now finding rationalizations after the fact.
Sure.
If I think about it, I think Jaws is more tight. Jaws is, I think the compositions of the shots are better.
There's that as well.
I think the the balance between, because you have fewer like main characters. There's the casting. It's a better like balance of personality, better balance of exchange, better balance of dialogue. Even the way that the dialogue overlaps. It has a better monologue. We talked about this. It has potentially the greatest monologue in cinema. The ending is, there's more at stake. Someone dies.
There's more at stake. There's more at stake in this film than in Jaws, I would say, in the bigger picture. How do you mean?
Sorry?
How do you mean there's more at stake in Jaws at the ending?
Sorry, I'm losing you.
I asked, how do you think the stakes are higher in Jaws for the ending versus Jurassic Park?
Sorry, I think the warden is interfering with the prison phone call. I'm losing you.
All right, give me a minute. I'll call you right back. Okay, go ahead. Okay, let's start again. Okay, yeah. Before we got cut off, because of the technical difficulties, I had asked you. I see Jurassic Park as having the more
greater stakes.
Greater stakes. You're looking at Jaws as greater stakes. I'm interested in that question, in that differentiation.
Because we're playing with why I think Jaws is a better film and more closer to a masterpiece than Jurassic Park. Okay.
Yeah.
In the world of Jurassic Park, in terms of outside of the off of the island, on the planet, yes, there are greater stakes because dinosaurs are more dangerous than sharks, and dinosaurs can roam the earth, right? If they get off the island.
Sure.
Yeah, for humanity. Now, in terms of the piece, though, Jaws has three main characters. Jurassic Park has several central characters, two of which are children. So in terms of that, okay, the children, blah, blah. But if you have three characters, just the economics of it, each of those characters is an important figure. The losing one of those characters, which ends up happening, has a greater impact on the story than, number one, the people who end up dying in Jurassic Park, and I guess in the economics of the plot or whatever, it's like, who can afford to get killed in Jurassic Park without completely like fucking with getting to your ending. So for me, the stakes are greater in Jaws. They're on a boat. It's harder to escape. Here they're on land. They can go into the compound. They can do all of these things. Plus, you add the element, and this is, at that point, it's not even hindsight. At that point, in the 90s, we already understand that Spielberg has a style. Spielberg has he has his reputation already. So, is he going to kill one of those kids? I don't know. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, to me, I think Jaws has greater stakes in terms of those criteria. Going back to, okay, threat to humanity, yes, the dinosaurs are more of a threat to humanity. You can look at it from like, okay, what in the films themselves, are there moments in Jurassic Park where the characters seem more likely to die? Yes. I mean, like when the T-Rex is coming down onto the kids, like trying to bite through the Jeep or whatever car, whatever kind of car it is. Yeah, that comes close, and it's fucking like, it's terrifying. But I think in terms of the reasons that I described, I think Jaws has greater stakes. So, and we can argue that. There's that. There's There are elements to it. Are you still there?
I'm here. I'm listening.
There are other elements that I think that if you take the totality of Jaws, it's more timeless than Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park is a fun ride, but Jaws, there's something about it, including the things that I mentioned, that even I think the composition, and this is going back to the shots, but with the music and everything, I feel like there was more of an artistic approach to the creation of Jaws and the camera work than, and when I mean artistic is I mean like consciously artistic than just expressive. So I feel like Jurassic Park is more of an action film that has all these elements it's to evoke the excitement, the sense of danger, these deeper moments, these more emotional moments, while still stimulating like the thematics, which we'll get into. But Jaws, I think Jaws gets to a deeper psychology with the shark, a deeper symbolism with the shark, a deeper, even what we talk about, kind of connecting to a certain literary tradition, going back to Melville and Moby Dick and stuff like that, even though that's a whale. What's the difference? I think those are some of the differences. Overall, it's one of those things that I'm making all of this shit up to rationalize a feeling.
That's fair.
You know?
Yeah. But like for me, I think the difference is that although Jaws is an exciting ride and it's a narrative, it's an adventure story. What's more, why the stakes are higher within the narrative, not in the bigger picture. The story, for the world, definitely Jurassic Park, like you said, the threat to humanity. It's a greater threat. But because you know these three men so well by the end of the story, you understand their personal investment in what needs to be done. Jurassic Park, for want of a better description, is a kids movie. It's an exciting, fun story. I never feel like the kids are really in danger. I don't feel like any of the adults are in any kind of danger of death. The ultimate danger is what I speak of. Yeah, they're hurt, they're tired, they're beat up. They might get fucked up a little bit by a raptor, but for the most part, they're going to survive this adventure. And with Quint's death in Jaws, you kind of get the impression that everything is there is no safety there. I mean, you expect the chief to make it through, but there's so much more that it could end so much worse. I never get that impression with this. What makes this a great movie, but not a masterpiece, is the skill to which Spielberg brings to the movie making process. I mean, the tension is there. He knows how to shoot things. He knows how to build that tension. It might seem cliche at this point, but that moment where the T-Rex makes itself the moment before the T-Rex makes itself seen, and he keeps cutting back with the water. That's brilliant. Where you hear the sound of the step, and you see that water start to ripple, and it's been set up with Malcolm's description of chaos theory, or later on when you see the print and the water start to vibrate.
The footprint, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that moment and I love the way that Spielberg continually milks it for every fucking bit of tension that he can get out of it. He really is a master at doing that. Spielberg's problem is, and we've talked about it in the past, not in depth of his filmmaking, but in some of the films, is that he is too much of a Boy Scout to really put his characters in the danger necessary to make it true to life.
That's go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
That's no, you were saying, but that's one of the differences with the book.
Mm-hmm. Good point. You've read the book. I don't remember it. I remember the book. I read the book. I just don't remember enough to compare it to the movie.
Yeah, I every once in a while I give books away, but I don't have it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember every few pages there's like a chapter heading, and it says control, or it reads control.
Yeah.
And this gets to, the theme of the film. They're at the excerpt that I quoted in the beginning is they're at this. They've all gone to. Okay, who are they? So, if you haven't been on Earth for the last
30 years.
30 years.
Yeah.
This wealthy kind of P.T. Barnum-esque businessman named John Hammond has opened. He's bought an island, and on the island is a research facility. And what they do is they engineer dinosaurs, and they've done that by taking DNA from mosquitoes that were around in the time of the dinosaurs during that era. The mosquitoes would drink dinosaur blood, and then some of them would land on trees, and then they would get trapped in the sap. The sap would fossilize to become amber. In these mines, they found amber stones or crystals or whatever with preserved mosquitoes inside them. They realized that they could extract the blood from the mosquito, the dinosaur blood. They could sequence the DNA, and by filling in the gaps in those sequences, they could reproduce in a lab dinosaurs. Then what they would do is they would create an amusement park that would have dinosaurs, and this is in like Central South America, on an island, and you could have people come. It would be a resort. You could have people come, and it would be amazing, right?
Yeah, from a capitalist point of view, yeah, it would be amazing.
Of course, it would be super amazing.
Which is
it's like Westworld.
Very powerful.
You could have androids.
Yeah.
You could have androids in the Wild West, and you could not relive. You could live and experience that kind of scenario. In Westworld, you can sleep with androids. You can kill them. You can you can do whatever the fuck you want as long as you can pay for it, and there are no real consequences because. Because these things are not alive.
Remember, same writer. Michael Crichton created.
Crichton wrote.
Oh yeah, Crichton.
Westworld.
You didn't know Crichton wrote Westworld?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought Westworld was older.
It is older. Westworld is from the 70s.
Much older.
It's from the 70s, from the 1970s.
So how old was he when he wrote Westworld?
I'm not sure.
Because Jurassic Park is from, I think, 90 is when the book got published. I wonder if that's like one of his first books.
It was one of his earlier books, yeah. Well, he actually directed the original film. He wrote and directed Westworld in 1973.
Is that the Yul Brynner?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
I don't think it's aged very well, but that's yeah. That's what
Well,
it comes from.
I saw the first season of that I think was on HBO, and it was a really great cast and really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this makes perfect sense.
Oh, I thought you knew
I didn't
that.
know this.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think it was a book. It was an original screenplay that he wrote and directed.
Okay, so like in this couldn't have been better. That you have the guy elaborating on
Mm-hmm.
previous themes. So okay, so now it's like Jaws on land meets Westworld with dinosaurs. So these things are not androids; they're actually real. So John Hammond, the wealthy entrepreneur, impresario, is having problems with like funding. So he gets a lawyer to visit, and the lawyer represents some of the people who are backing the park who are concerned because one of the guards got killed by a mysterious dinosaur. He visits. Ian Malcolm, played by Jeff Goldblum, a mathematician. He's there visiting. You have a paleontologist, played by Sam Neill, Dr. Alan Grant. He's an expert in raptors. He's a leader in the field. He doesn't know if the raptors there yet. He goes. His romantic interest, Dr. Sadler, who is a paleobotanist, she goes. And you have Hammond's grandchildren, and they're all there for this cool introduction to the park before it opens to the public. There are other characters on the side. There is a villainous Nedry. There is a chain-smoking Samuel Jackson. There are dinosaurs. They go to Jurassic Park. Things don't go according to plan. The dinosaurs fucking wreak havoc on the park. That's what it's about. That's what the story is. That's what the plot is. What it's about is they're sitting at one point, they're going to have lunch, and these doctors start to express some of their concerns. Ian Malcolm, the most prominent critic, he's expressing some of the criticisms that I mentioned in the beginning about the scientists at Jurassic Park having not taken responsibility and having not contemplated whether they should, because they were so interested in trying to find out if they could. Hammond responds by saying, "Hey, like if I were to engineer condors or clone condors, you wouldn't be criticizing me." And Ian Malcolm says, "That's not it. Like dinosaurs had their shot. Nature selected them for extinction. They didn't go extinct because of deforestation or the building of a dam," he says. Nature selected them for extinction. Sadler jumps in, basically asking how you can control an ecosystem that's extinct. You know nothing about it. With poisonous plants chosen because of how they look.
Mm-hmm.
Grant jumps in. Humans and dinosaurs have been separated by whatever he says, 65 million, whatever, however many millions of years of evolution. How will these things, unless you're a creationist who believes that the Earth is 3,000 years old and that there be light, and then Adam and Eve and fucking and the T-Rex like nearby, like that's not, unless you subscribe to that, humans and dinosaurs have never come in contact, obviously. So now that they're in contact, what the fuck now? God makes man. I don't remember the
He said God makes dinosaurs, God kills dinosaurs, God makes man.
dinosaurs. God makes man, right?
Yeah.
Go on.
God makes man. I don't remember.
Man makes dinosaurs.
Man makes dinosaurs. Dinosaurs kill man.
Dinosaurs kill man. Woman inherits the earth,
Yeah.
and then both of their heads turn.
Yeah.
And so it's control. Michael Crichton, control. This recurring chapter heading. In the book, Hammond dies.
Wow.
Something that Spielberg won't do.
Yeah.
Hammond fucking dies.
Not someone as sweet and lovable as Richard Attenborough. Definitely not.
Right.
Not Santa Claus. Yeah.
No. No, and I mean, in the film, he's a tragic.
Mm-hmm.
He's a tragic optimist. Who he's like, I understand that now. No, like he tells a story. He's eating ice cream and it's like a tear in my beer. He's fucking crying into the ice cream. He's telling Sadler about seeing a flea circus as a child, and it had fleas on trapeze and whether you call it a carousel or merry-go-round,
Mm-hmm.
so it's both, and it was all animatronic, or as in the lawyer says in this film, autoerotic, and they say, "Oh, look, mommy, I can see the fleas, and obviously there were no fleas, but it's just buying into that dream, right? It's just creating the dream that we can all buy into, and that captured his imagination in such a way that he wanted to create something that was real, something that, as he describes, that you could touch. I mean, obviously the problem is like you can't fucking, even if you create a dinosaur that's real, you cannot touch a dinosaur. This is not a petting zoo. But this, in the way that Jaws goes back to Melville, this goes back to Frankenstein. It's alive.
Yeah.
The book and the film, the Universal film, and it goes to Westworld. It goes to even Blade Runner and Ex Machina, which we haven't talked about yet. But Ex Machina has these nods to fucking Jurassic Park. Have you seen Ex Machina?
Oh yeah, very good film.
Arriving on the helicopter, right? The piano music when he enters the house is a quote to the John Williams theme for Jurassic Park. Interestingly, the way that the T-Rex at the end of this film saves them when they're in the central part of the gift shop, which is kind of like the museum part. They're about to be killed by two of the raptors that are still free. One of them is locked in the freezer, freezer room or whatever. The T-Rex literally comes out of nowhere and saves them. And in theater, that's called a Deus Ex Machina, God from the machine. When you have suddenly something beyond the central character's control coming in to save him. It's a cheat. And the T-Rex does that here. This goes to all of these types of films that involve sci-fi and trying to play God, trying to control man's place in the universe by trying to turn man into a creator of life separate from procreation, right? Even Her, in the film Her, where it's like AI, the interesting thing about her to me is that it's the most dangerous thing, and what separates her from other films is that unlike these films where it's like the threat is to be killed by something that you create, this really does touch on the social aspect of humans and technology and social media and all that. Is that in her, the worst thing that we can do is create something that will abandon us. It's not even going to fucking kill us. It's just going to fucking abandon us. That's even worse. But all of this shit is related. And so these themes and these topics are couched in a dinosaur story.
Yeah.
That's very palatable, very easy to understand, and very, very fun and very well performed. The cast is very well balanced, and each of the characters kind of, in a sense, they start to take on these kind of like, or they can take on these like stock character type of aspects, but they're done because the cast is so good. They're really brought to life. Like, I think everybody's great in this film.
I like it a lot. I think it's a really well-made film. Even the kids are well cast in roles that I think the film would be better for not having. It would change the film. It would make it a much more... I think it would make it more to the likings of what you and I are looking for in this kind of a story. The problem is that, with millions and millions of dollars at stake, you have to do something that makes it a little bit more attractive to a family audience, because that's going to be the main that's going to be the main focus. It's going to be the target of who they're going to get in for this film. Kids like to have.
The kids are also in the book.
The kids are also okay, yeah. But even in that case, but there's a little bit more.
You also need the kids. You need one of the kids to be interested in computers, so that it brings in this element of like, once the system goes down, because Nedry, once he shuts the system down so that he can steal dinosaur embryos and put them in that Barbasol fucking shaving cream can that we all remember.
So we're still wondering where it is and how it's going to make its reappearance. I don't know if the sequels have ever covered that.
I don't either, because I refuse to watch them, because I'm keeping this.
No, we're still going to talk about that, though. I'm still going to drag you down that rabbit hole.
I started to watch the second one.
Yeah.
And I turned it off.
Well, I want to go into that for a little bit, but
sure,
because I watched it this morning.
Okay. 1 second. So you need the kid to be the non-expert in a room full of doctors, PhDs, experts, adults. You need that person to be the counterbalance to Nedry, so that it's another element of just versus just having kids that are there as kind of like
filler,
damsel in distress kind of characters that need to be saved. They can actually play a role.
But it annoys me in this film because what Spielberg is doing, and I don't know if this is as prominent in the book, is that Spielberg is using these two kids in order to humanize the Sam Neill character and make him more attractive to his girlfriend. It annoyed me.
It's not only to make him more. It's not to make him more attractive to his girlfriend. His girlfriend is already attracted to him. It's for him to develop
more
as a character.
More attractive to see him. It's that situation where she wants kids, he doesn't want kids. Now he has raised these two kids on an adventure, And now he's ready for that, which ultimately, that's what I mean by making him more attractive. She's already attracted to him. She cares about him deeply. But
I'm losing
there's
you.
that, okay, so there's that question of whether or not he is a good partner for her because he doesn't want to have children. You dig what I'm saying?
I do, but it's not that element is not in the story for her. It's in the story for us.
Yes.
Because the point is for him to start in one place
Mm-hmm.
and then to end up more fully developed as a character.
But for me, it seems more manipulative and obvious, and I don't like it. It's a clumsy handling of something that I think the film would be better. I think the film and the story itself would be better served by not having. But I understand why it's there, and it really kind of balances in a bad way. It balances what's great about this film, because the tension and the excitement and the power of the danger of these dinosaurs makes me at least dismissive of the things that I don't like about it. You know what I mean? And few films are able to do that, where something as heavy-handed and as clumsy as these kids narratively would make a film like this difficult for me. I'm willing to dismiss them because of the rest of the film is so good.
You're willing to dismiss the fact that you don't like that they're there
Yes.
to begin with.
Yes.
Is what you're saying.
I'm willing to dismiss a plot narrative, a plot device that I find annoying and heavy-handed, because everything else about it works so well. The casting works well. The story, the aspect of the story where the nature of greed, because this is something that we haven't really talked about. I don't find this to be a science fiction movie, although there are elements of it. This is more of a speculative, a speculation into future technology. I see
That's
the
fucking science fiction. That's exactly what that is.
Yes, but we've talked about this in the past, where science fiction tends to be more robotic and about robotics and space, where this is advancing technology to bring something back from the past. It is science fiction, but it's a different type of science fiction. And yes, the brilliance of science fiction is the commentary on today's times. What I'm saying here is this is not like Blade Runner. This is not like Dark City or The Matrix or anything like that. This is around this time or shortly after. I can't remember if it's before or after, but I'm pretty sure it's after. We had a cloning incident with Dolly the sheep, if you recall.
Yeah.
And people were up in arms about it. And there were certain elements of the scientific community that said it is our job to take science and technology to its logical conclusion. But there's also that element of the scientific community and the rest of, a lot of other people who say it is wrong to. Some people will say fuck with God in that manner. I would say fuck with nature because of my beliefs. But
Sure,
I think there's something unnatural about trying to be God.
I mean, that goes back to fucking Mary Shelley. I mean, and this is like the for this it would be like the bioethics of it. And yeah, I mean, whether it's fucking space or android or robots or whatever, or a lab, it's fucking sci-fi. So it's not like, I guess I guess, yeah, when we think
There's elements of
when we
it's.
think
Go ahead. I'm
when
sorry.
we think of science fiction, like maybe the reflex is to think space or
Well, it's a lot
but
like trying to define noir. The cheating
I think
wife.
it's easier than trying to define noir though.
Well, what I'm saying though is the comparison is the detective novel is the detective or the cop and the femme fatale. All of that makes it easy to embrace a noir. But let's say something like The Setup, which is a boxer who throws a match. That's a little bit more. That's a little bit more. It doesn't play within the parameters that we're used to, but it's still a noir. Yes, this is science fiction, but this, like you said, and like I hinted at, it's easier to identify science fiction as space, aliens, and the future. It's a lot more difficult when the actions on screen mirror the world that we live in today.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. But that's
but
splitting hairs.
But it's in a fucking lab.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fucking science.
We can go round and round in circles on this one. I'm talking about the nuance of how a movie comes off to you. I don't watch this film with a sense of science fiction. I watch it with a sense of, not in the same way that Blade Runner or Minority Report or any of those films come off as.
Yeah.
So it really is splitting hairs, and it really is kind of. I wouldn't put it on a list of science fiction movies, although technically you could make the argument, and it would be an easy argument to make. But it doesn't have that emotional feel that a science fiction film has, in the same way that what's a good example that there are certain films that are considered noirs that you're not sure if that necessarily qualifies as noir. I can't think of one at the moment.
I mean, even Blade Runner has elements of film noir,
yeah,
but it's sci-fi.
Okay, I'll give you a perfect example.
Frankenstein. Hold on. The Universal Frankenstein is considered a horror film, but it's also a science fiction film.
Sure. Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Night of the Hunter. Some people argue that's a noir. It doesn't feel like it has elements of a noir, but it doesn't feel wholeheartedly like a noir. And I think that those are the better pictures. Well, they're different. That's what makes those films better than if they had just adhered to a certain. If they had set Jurassic Park 20 years in the future, I don't think it would have the power that it has as a film. Even though this movie is 30 years old, watching it last night, there was nothing in there that I watched that I thought, that looks old. Maybe some of the computers, but that's about it. Some of the graphics on the computers. But other than that, this is a contemporary story. I could see this shit happening right here, right now, and I could see this shit being filmed right here, right now, and all you would have to do is update the computers. That's it. It doesn't seem like 30 years ago.
Maybe you wouldn't have Samuel Jackson smoking.
I think Sam Jackson would fight for that, and I'd want him to. I would want him to. That smoking bit cracks me up every time. But I think it's a powerful movie with a lot to say. I just wish it was brave enough to do it in a more adult way, regardless of whether or not the kids are in the novel. Now, if you want to really know how good this film is, watch the sequel, because the sequel hits all the right notes and is hollow. I mean, there are moments in the sequel that are brilliant, but overall, it's a film that doesn't connect. Number one, it doesn't have the novelty of being new. But number two, it doesn't feel it doesn't. The stakes, number one, the stakes are not as high. And you don't ever get the sense. It's weird. With Jaws, you really get an understanding of Quint, Brody, and Hooper. Jurassic Park, there's a fall off. I don't think you get to. I don't think you get to know any of these characters as well as you do in Jaws. And the second film is even worse at that, with only Jeff Goldblum coming back as Malcolm, and Attenborough in a cameo. But if you watch film,
what's it about? So what is it about? I saw it's
almost like the evil twin. Yeah, we killed this motherfucker in the first movie, but he has a twin. So now we got to go get that son of a bitch. There was a backup island. There was another island where they would do the experimentations and where they would birth the dinosaurs. Although we saw one being born on this other island, which there's a little bit of a plot hole there, but they had a scientific. The island of the first film was designed to be Disneyland. It was designed to be the park. The island of the second film was the science station, in which the experimentations, the hits and misses, the failures, and the triumphs were all created there.
It's
the
island of Dr. Moreau.
Exactly. And the animals got loose there and started forming animal societies, basically with herbivores on the outside of the rim and the predators on the inside. Hammond's backers wrestle control of the company from him and want to go there in order to make as much money as they can. And what they want to do is take the animals from the island and bring them to a wild preserve in San Diego, like the San Diego Wild Preservation, and it's just a mess. It's there's a good. Pete Postlethwaite plays a hunter, great white hunter type of character, and he does a really good job with it. Vince Vaughn is a photographer, combat photographer. Julianne Moore is a she's slumming and doing it badly too. And this is the thing where I'm losing you. This is the thing. Julianne Moore comes into it, and she is slumming. Because usually she can make greater things out of what's there. There's nothing for her to work with in this film. And I don't know if the performance is bad or if it's simply that she has nothing to work with, because it just doesn't work on so many levels. And that's, they kidnap a T-Rex baby, bring it to the States, bring the father. The father goes on a rampage, and that's it. That's basically the movie. I wasn't excited. I wasn't thrilled. I didn't care about the characters. But it did show me how good it elevated Jurassic Park, because you realized how much you actually did care. I would recommend it as a study in how things can go sideways, but I wouldn't recommend it as a movie.
It's one of those things where it's the cast of the original, Jeff Goldblum plays this character, embodies the character. You believe that that's that person. Sam Neill, coming off of the piano. Same thing. You have this. He's like kind of serious, but you you get it. You get that that's him. Laura Dern bringing all this humanity to it, like a lightheartedness, a humor, really great in terms of being terrified in these moments where it's kind of like, people, there's that term ugly cry.
Yeah.
So ugly cry, you get so emotional or whatever, like you cry and you supposedly you don't look good.
Mm-hmm.
She has these moments where she's so afraid, like she's not afraid as a performer to like look unflattering, in a different way that she would go on to do with David Lynch, which is on another level to work with David Lynch. But
it's a completely different painting set, completely different canvas. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I said it's a completely different canvas, different paints, everything. It's crazy the difference between a Lynch and a Spielberg. But go ahead.
I didn't catch that.
Never mind. Continue with what you were saying. We're gonna have to work on this.
Wayne Knight. This is, I think, one of the best performances in the piece.
Why is that?
He just really makes this character real to me. He just makes him this person he's not just, okay, this is the villain or this is the Weasley villain. When he first meets the Dodson character when they're having lunch, and he has these tics when he laughs, he shakes all over, and he's just really giddy and really excited, and I'm watching him do this, and I'm looking at it like, as an actor, and I'm saying, like, he can just do this. He can do it basically on cue. So it looks at once as if on cue, but at the same time, it looks very, very organic. So I can see the performance, but at the same time, I'm like, to be able to do that and to really have it come off as organic is very interesting. And there's one part where he's very nervous because he's going to go steal these embryos, and so he's just put this shut off function on the system, and he's explaining that he's going to step away because he wants to go back to the vending machine because he's a fucking slob and he loves like junk food, and the way he plays it is very, very suspicious, and very nervous, and so in that kind of scene, as an actor, you have to make a choice. Like, in every scene you have to make a choice, but the choice for this scene is like, okay, how do you play this where you're conveying nervousness, but you want to try. It's the same thing that I've discussed in the past. When it's someone playing drunk, you don't just play. You're not just drunk. You're trying to not act drunk, but you're still drunk, and the drunkenness is like leaking out in your behavior. So in this sense, he's being very nervous, but at the same time, it's like he's not good at hiding his nervousness, even though you see him trying to hide his nervousness, so that his nervousness is detectable to you as an audience member, but you also know that he's also acting weird to the people around him in that scene, in that world. The other characters are like, what the fuck is this guy up to? Even to the point that, like, in those moments, if you were nervous because you were hiding something and you were being awkward and you sensed that other people could sense that you were being awkward, you would become more awkward because you would get more nervous. And so I sense like all of that happening, and I feel him and I see him doing that. And I love watching him in this film. I love watching everything he does in this film because it feels very, very real. Very real. Yeah. But at the same time, he's, in a sense, not everything that he's doing is so-called like naturalistic. Some of the stuff is a little bit bigger, but it works. Because people also are strange enough and idiosyncratic enough to do shit like that. Talking to himself. I think his performance is great. It's one of my. I think it's probably my favorite performance in the film, and when I think back of like 90s ensemble, just like side character actor performances, or maybe even in general, his is one of my favorites, and it makes me curious, like why there wasn't. I know he was doing Seinfeld and other shit, but it's like, how would he have been in other films? You know what I mean? Like that or in the films that he was in that I don't even know about.
Well, all I really know is that Spielberg pulled him. Spielberg liked him in Basic Instinct. He said, "I want that guy."
Oh yeah, he was great in Basic Instinct. Yeah, and it's so small.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't even remember that, but yeah, he was great in that.
Yeah, Spielberg saw him in that and said, "I want this guy for Nedry." And boom, I don't think he auditioned. I think he just, but yeah, really, yeah, he does beautifully in this. I mean, I think the whole film. I think the film as a whole is it's weird because it's this staple of the 1990s. It's a change over in film technology, but it's got a good story. And it's really like where the second film is just a rehash and a money grab. This is a goddamn good film, and it has something to say, and it's making a comment on us as a people, because you have to wonder. I mean, we're just a couple of assholes that work regular 40-hour-a-week jobs and talk movies. There are people that are actually doing scientific studies that either are like this or similar, and in some cases more frightening than what you're seeing on in this picture. When you really think about what's going on in labs, both in this country and throughout the world, or in different countries funded by U.S. money because maybe you can get away with more shit doing it that way, I don't think that Jurassic Park is too far off of. If that's the case, it's not science fiction. You know what I mean? It's not the fiction part of science. You know.
I also have to balance that out before we get into fucking conspiracy theory. It's also like there are people in fucking labs doing shit every day that like benefit humanity that we take for granted.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about vaccines. We're talking about certain elements of food medicines. Engineering. Yeah, to feed people. Also,
and even aside from fucking like, we don't need to like on the negative side of it. There's also we don't have to go to the extreme of like. In some lab in fucking China they're engineering this or that. But it's also like there's stuff being engineered that's being put in our food to preserve our food, but at the same time it's not the fucking healthiest.
But it's also the attempt to feed a population that this world was never intended to have. Numbers wise. Too many fucking people.
I mean, I don't know if the world had an intention for the number. It's just that the
or at least what a world can support. Is that a better way of describing it?
Right. Yeah.
Not intention, but capability.
Yeah. Right. So I mean, when you get into GMOs,
Mm-hmm.
and in terms of farming and shit like that, we do have to deal with that when you have you're modifying certain crops to be resistant to certain pests or certain forms of fungus or certain things like that. There's that. There's and we've been dealing with that since the beginnings of like agriculture and like once we transitioned from nomadic to an agrarian, like
Mm-hmm.
stable, stationary kind of civilizations versus migratory. Like we've been dealing with shit like that, and it's like these are the pitfalls of trying to exist with technology. And I mean, like that film, what is it? The Story of Fire.
I don't know that.
You know, huh?
Quest for Fire? What are you talking about?
Quest for Fire, is that it? Where they're the cave people and they're like, yeah. I mean,
Ron
that's,
Perlman without makeup? Yeah.
Right. That's in a sense, that's kind of like a sci-fi story because it's technological. You know what I mean? And because fire, the harnessing of fire is technological. And you know, that's fucking Jungle Book, right? That's that one orangutan. That's what he wants. He wants like fire because that will make you want to be like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have this technology that can keep you warm, that can cook your food, that can illuminate the world, but at the same time, it can fucking burn you and burn everything around you. And, you know, that goes from fucking that to Oppenheimer to fucking, like, everything else. And we're on phones fucking sometimes having issues talking to one another, but at the same time, we can present our thoughts to people in fucking Pakistan and Alabama and other parts of the planet, and maybe even fucking like maybe even there's some fucking alien that doesn't want to make him or herself or themselves known to us. That's like, okay, interesting. You never fucking know, but it's it's these things of how do you do it? What do you do? Interestingly, in this film, it's the lawyer gets killed. The slimy villain guy gets killed.
All the right people
the
get
hunter
killed,
or animal expert or whatever, in a kind of like a poetic way, gets killed, and he respects it. You know what I mean? He's a clever girl. Samuel L. Jackson's character gets killed. He just kind of he's just the black guy in the film.
I was wondering.
There's just no rhyme or reason to it. He just has to die, you know. You know, the only sequel to Jurassic Park that I would be interested in watching would be like a Jordan Peele version.
See what he could do with it.
Well, but see what he would say.
Yeah. The ones that I've seen. Yeah. You were saying? Go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead. You were saying?
I mean, and Get Out is another version of that too.
Mm-hmm.
Get Out is that, you know? So I think in a sense we've seen it already. It's been a long time coming to record this episode, but it's been a long time coming to where we got to the point that we did Jaws. So in a long line of films, by Spielberg, we've still only done, handful.
Yeah.
We've done Duel, we've done E.T., we've done Jaws, we've done the Indiana Jones films,
Mm-hmm.
we've done this, and I think maybe that's it.
No, we still got a few more.
I'm sorry?
I still think we have more. I still think Spielberg, we still have a wealth of Spielberg to go into.
Yeah.
We still got Empire of the Sun, Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List, Munich, Minority Report, War of the Worlds. We have a number of films. I mean, Spielberg, I'm a little bit more open. Maybe I'm making up for past indiscretions, but I appreciate Spielberg more now than I ever have. And I think he's a filmmaker that, for the faults that I have with his optimism and idealism, which are a stark contrast to my cynicism and pessimism, what he does, you cannot take away the excitement. If you're a true lover of film, as far as I'm concerned, it's hard to be dismissive of the uncontrolled reaction that you have to a Steven Spielberg film. The man knows how to make exciting, suspenseful, tension-filled films, and he knows how to make you care about the characters. I think he's one of the greatest filmmakers this art form has ever known, and this is a great step in this film is a great step in the evolution of film. Everything changed after this. Everything. It'd be interesting to take a look at the films that came in the immediate wake and the subsequent wake of this movie. It's an incredibly important film. I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it. I'm glad that you recommended it.
So am I.
Good. Who do we want to thank for this episode? Who are we sending a shout out to?
This week, WatchThis. buymeacoffee.com/watch RickRamos. That's buymeacoffee.com/watch RickRamos. We're going Burroughs.
A favorite.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much. Have a great week. Bye-bye.